LibertyRevoltMedia.com.
Good morning, my fellow patriots, tuning in to the radio broadcast in Northern Colorado or on the website 1360khnc.com to tune in from anywhere, anytime. You can catch all of our shows, by the way, after the fact on the podcast section at the website and tuning in on the live stream, youtube.com/libertyrevolt if you want to see my beautiful face. Guys, good morning. It's going to be a wonderful day. It is 6:06 Monday, January 11th. The weather is going to be a chilly one. Guys, it doesn't look like it's going to get above mid-40s at any point today, but it will be sunny for the vast majority of the day, and there will be very mild winds and no chance of rain. A little misty this morning on my drive to the studio. I'm here in Johnstown, KHNC Studios, hanging out with you guys. How are you doing today? I hope you're having a good time. I hope you're driving to work. I hope you're ready to work hard, because that's what this country really needs. If you want to make America great again, you do it by producing value socially, culturally, and monetarily, physically, materialistically here in our country. And it is a wonderful country. Guys, I know it looks like a mess right now, but I think we can pull out of it. I think it's times like these that people really start to reassess their own choices. They really start to reassess the way we've been doing things. And perhaps there's a way we could move forward. I know the left seems to be on the warpath. The right seems to be on the warpath, but most of America is digging their heels in, feeling like this is pretty gross. Hopefully it'll work out. Hopefully it'll work out. I see some troublesome things coming down the line, but we will address those as it comes. On this day in history, now you guys will have to let me know what you think about my on this day in history segments, because obviously this is week 2 of the Bucky Dillon morning show, our morning show, a collaborative between myself and the freedom-loving, free-thinking patriot community all across the country. I would say all across the world, but apparently our YouTube streams are officially blocked in North Korea, Iran, Syria, and Cuba. So that's a real shame, because, you know, those people might need to hear what we have to say. But that is all right. I suppose when you're blocked in North Korea, it's some evidence that you might be on the right path. So let me know what you guys think about this day in history. I think it's fun for myself personally, and I tried to envision what kind of morning show would I want to hear when I'm driving to work. And I think this day in history just gives us something interesting to tell our coworkers when we walk in the door. I mean, ever since I've started doing, when I leave and I go about my day, I can't help but stop someone and say, "Hey, did you know this day on history, da 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 da?" And, you know, people seem to find that pretty entertaining. So this day in history, just 5 important events. In 1599, Jacob von Neck's fleet leaves Batam, Java, in modern-day Indonesia with 1 million pounds of pepper and cloves, and a further half a ship full of nutmeg, mace, and cinnamon. I don't know why that's top of the list for important events, but okay. In 1838, first public demonstration of telegraph messages sent using dots and dashes at Speedwell, Ironworks in Morristown, New Jersey by Samuel Morse. Morse code. Wow, the first demonstration of Morse code in 1838 was today, January 11th. That's interesting. In 1879, Anglo-Zulu War begins as British Lieutenant General Chelmsford invades Zululand in South Africa. In 1922, insulin first used on humans to treat diabetes on Canadian Leonard Thompson, aged 14. That's interesting. 1964, first government report by U.S. Surgeon General Luther Terry warning that smoking may be hazardous. Well, seems pretty obvious to me that the chemical byproduct of plant combustion might not be so great for your lungs, but fair enough. Did you guys know that nicotine is technically considered the most effective neural stimulant? And that's why a lot of people liked to smoke their tobacco pipe and think. I might have to try it sometime. Like I said, the weather's going to be moderately mild. We have the opportunity to have a pretty good day if we get our mind right. I'm going to break into the local news. So this is what's going on in Colorado locally. This weekend, there was an anti-Trump protest in Denver. It looks like Pelosi will be pushing to impeach Trump. Denver climate activists to propose recycling and compost initiative, energy use fees. Oh, I'm sure once the government gets a taste of carbon fees or carbon tax or energy use fees, they'll scale that back down as soon as they feel we can afford to do so, don't you think? That's typically what happens. For example, when they started taxing the legal sale of marijuana here in Colorado, they said it was going to go to the schools or it would be reimbursed to the people. I'm not sure either has happened. Although, so the idea of them taxing energy, I have a feeling they're not going to be quite as eager to relinquish those taxes. You're listening to 1360 KHNC Freedom Radio. This is the Bucky Dillon Show, between myself and the free-thinking, freedom-loving, patriot community of the U.S. and the world.
Join us and don't miss a moment of the Alex Jones Show, your number one source for real independent media. InfoWars is pro-America, pro-family, pro-freedom. We are rebooting 1776. Exclusive reports, live coverage, information you won't find anywhere else. Tomorrow's news today. Stay informed by listening to KHNC 1360 AM.
Alex is here 1 o'clock, Monday through Friday, right here on the Roar of the Rockies.
Higher rates, lower rates, negative rates, bail-ins, bailouts, and so much more. You know why you need to own gold and silver. At the Patriot Trading Group, we're a different kind of company. We have no commission salespeople, no boiler room sales calls, no high-price spokesmen. We believe in treating you with honesty and respect and delivering you the best products at the best price. Buying or selling, call us at 800-951-0592 or go to our website at allamericangold.com.
Hey, y'all, I'm Blake Shelton. Being from Oklahoma, I know a thing or two about natural disasters. Tornadoes are common where I'm from and have affected my life and the lives of people I care about. No matter where you live, be aware of the dangers in your area and have a plan. You can create an emergency kit, come up with an evacuation plan, and know where to seek shelter. You never know when a disaster may hit. These simple steps can help save a life. This message is brought to you by the U.S. Air Force.
If your part of Rocky Mountain Paradise has been waiting to burn for 100 years, this fall you should call Affordable Tree Service North at 568-6898. I have 3 houses fire went around, and Rob's handiwork saved 4 miles of Boulder Mountain Watch. We can get raging fire to drop out of the trees long before it gets too close to home. If the fire marshal flagged the drive or you're worried about the power lines, call 568-6898.
I'm a tree cutting man.
We were just catching up on the local headlines here. There's coronavirus updates. I'll get you up to speed. Protesters in Denver demanding Trump impeachment. A man who traveled from Colorado to D.C. charged with threatening Pelosi. Apparently, he had a, quote, assault rifle and implied that he would put a bullet in her noggin on live TV. Possible virus exposure for lawmakers sheltering during riot. I heard that one of our congressmen came out and said that he tested positive shortly after that event. DPD warns dispensaries about thieves targeting customers. Littleton family searching for missing 16-year-old girl. I'd like to cover that because I think that is one of the most important things we could talk about. Colorado Democrats continue push to have Trump resign or removed from people caught in large avalanches Friday in Colorado as rescue calls increase. Denver Police Department makes arrest in human remains case. And there's a $10,000 reward offered for information leading to conviction of Aspen gas vandalism. That's interesting. Let's see. I want to get to this young woman though. One thing about Trump that I do like is he has taken a very, very strong stand against human trafficking. If we look at arrests, if we look at his efforts on the southern border, and that's one of the arguments I make for southern border security. And I would just like to take a moment here to talk about border security, but I would like to get back to this young woman. So, Littleton family tirelessly searching for missing 16-year-old girl. The holidays are a time for family to come together. This is according to 7 News, by the way. The holidays are a time for family to come together. That's exactly. She's my baby. She's my little girl. I will do anything we can to get her back, said an emotional cop of her missing daughter. Cop's daughter, Whitney Luloff, went on her annual trip to Phoenix to see her father. She left December 19th. On January 4th, she boarded a plane back to Colorado. Whitney texted her mom before she took off. I said, I love you, she said. I love you too. Which I use emojis with me, cop said. Or she said, I said, I love you. She said, I love you too. Heart, heart, thumbs up emoji. Which I thought was a little odd because she does not use emojis with me, cop said. A spokesperson for the Denver Police Department says surveillance video shows Whitney arrived at Denver International Airport on that day, and then she took a light rail to the 61st and Penna stop. She ended up walking east on 61st. During this whole time, she's by herself. From there, we're still trying to figure out where she went and who she could be with at this point, Denver Police Department Public Information Officer Jay Cassilis said. Whitney was seen wearing a wig as she left the airport, a long dark jacket. She did not get that from her dad. She did not get from me. We believe that someone gave her these things, cop told Denver 7. That's what leads cop and her family to believe Whitney was not alone. Somebody else is involved that we don't know and that none of her friends know. That leads me to believe that she may have met someone online, that there's a predator of some sort, cop explained. If you know anything, Denver Police Department is asking that you call Crime Stoppers at 720-913-7876. You can also call Denver Police Department detectives at 720-913-6633 or Douglas County Sheriff's Office. Just call the police. You can look up pictures of this girl. Her name is Whitney Loloff, 16-year-old girl missing. It's a tragedy. But I wanted to talk about border security. And this is one of those areas that I think it's totally ingenuous of the left to be against. Operational security of your borders. If you don't have operational control of your borders, it doesn't matter what's written down on the papers. You don't have a border policy. You can say this, you can say that. If you don't have control of your borders, you don't have a border policy. And having control of your borders doesn't mean that we can't let people in. We need people. We absolutely need people. China outnumbers us 5-1. India outnumbers us 5-1. If we want to maintain our position as a competitive manufacturing hub, we need a labor force. We have massive segments of the population right now that need help. Clearly, they need help. They've been spurring protests much more violent than that one at the Capitol all summer long. It's all they talk about is how we need to invest in helping our troubled communities. But the first ones who are overlooked for job opportunities are single mothers, people with troubled criminal histories, people with poor educations, people with little work history. And those are the first ones to lose their job when you're bringing in 1 million illegal immigrants a year. And that is to say nothing about the crime that occurs at our southern border and the people who are victims of those crimes. MS-13 isn't terrorizing Nancy Pelosi's neighborhood. They're not kidnapping children and selling drugs in Nancy Pelosi's neighborhood. They're primarily doing that in low-income Latino communities along the southern border. And that's why the closer to the border, the more likely Latinos were to support Trump. Because those are the communities that are most affected by the violence and the crime. We have millions of children who are sex trafficked around the world. Okay? And almost all of it in the U.S. comes to and from the southern border. And that's part of the reason we separate children at the border. There are only like 4 things you can do when a child and an adult come across the southern border, right? Number 1, you can just let them go willy-nilly into the country. Well, that's a bad strategy because we don't know the relationship that this child has to that adult. Agents are routinely finding the same child coming across the border repeatedly with different adults because criminal organizations south of the border understand that we have laws on the book that makes it so that they're catch and release if you have a child with you, right? So you bring a child across the border, then you essentially have a free pass into the United States. And criminals were exploiting that. They find houses in the U.S. where children and women are being kept by cartels because they haven't, quote, paid their dues yet to the cartel that is trafficking them and using them. And something that they'll do is they'll send a small group of people in one direction or a large group of people in one part of the open border. And all of our Border Patrol agents have to gather there to deal with those people. And then a small group of criminals will go up while the Border Patrol agents are distracted and slip in another way. They're strategically using women and children so that they can smuggle drugs across the border. And we don't know who these children's parents are. Part of the reason we separate them is because of how prolific sex trafficking is, particularly in Southern America, South America. So we separate them, right? Now, you could either send the child and the adult to a jail facility where they await for a court hearing, which isn't very kind to the child, or you release them willy-nilly into the country, which isn't very kind to the children who are being trafficked and incentivizes more of it. You just turn them away at the border and expect these children to walk back across the desert. We spend billions of dollars flying them back to their country, and a lot of times they won't tell you where they're from. Or we give the adult, we separate them, and we question the adult and we question the child, and we try to figure out the relationship between the child and the adult. Sometimes they take DNA samples so that they can compare to see if they claim to be the child's parents, to see if this is truly the parent. But these cages, these facilities that you see, their intentions is to be a daycare facility. And they are given funding so that they can have educational opportunities, recreational opportunities, so that they can be safe and comfortable. But the Democrats refuse to fund them because the Democrats make a lot of political hay out of pointing to children in facilities that are not equipped to take care of them. And so they point to that and they say, look at these children in these horrendous conditions, and it's all these evil Republicans' fault. They refuse to fund these facilities so that these facilities can take proper care of the children, because we can't just let any adult with a child walk on through and just use this naive, oh, well, I'm sure it's just everything's on the up and up. There's nothing shady going on here, because children are being taken advantage of. I mean, there are children who are brought across the border and then sent to some city to work as a indentured prostitute, where they're essentially raped by 40 men a day for years. Do we care about those children? Having operational control of our borders doesn't mean that we're not trying to help people, but we need to stop the exploitation of women and children because of our laws, and we need to take care of our own communities. We can't do the world any good if we're bankrupt. If we're socially destabilized by a massive flux of illegal immigration across the border, and if Americans feel like they have no control over their own communities. And furthermore, it's a recipe for racism. I thought the left was all about, hey, we need to end racism. You want to end racism? Well, what do you think happens if you have a small town that is barely making it on their own, a small town of white Christian farmers, and then you start bringing in 500 illegal immigrants a year into their community, and they have no control over it, no say over it. And then pretty soon their schools are overwhelmed, their hospitals are overwhelmed, their culture's changing. Half their community doesn't speak their language or share their religion or share their values. And you give people no control over their community, and you rush in people from an outside community too quickly, and it destabilizes the community and manufactures racism. You know, Thomas Sowell said that racism wasn't dead, but it was hanging by a thread, being kept alive by grievance peddlers who are making political hay out of being able to point to that racism in order to achieve their political aims. You're listening to the Bucky Dillon Show, our morning show, 1360 KHNC.
Hey guys, this is Steve from Red Pill Truth, KHNC 1360 AM, Johnstown, Colorado. This show runs Saturdays at 3. We talk about the truths that the mainstream media won't tell you about until they have to. We'll see you Saturday at 3.
Does this corrupt monetary system give you a whack to the head or a poke in the eye? Call Patriot Trading Group at 800-951-0592. That's 800-951-0592. Don't be a stooge. Buy gold and silver today.
Hi, I'm Dr. Anita Chandra with today's tip for kids from the American Academy of Pediatrics. To keep your family healthy and safe, it's important to be ready if disasters happen. Develop a family communication plan. Make sure your family, including your children, know how to reach each other. Make a kit with first aid supplies, medicine, medical records, and comforting things for your child. Finally, talk about what to do when emergencies happen, like streets flooding, a power outage, or a fire. For more, visit healthychildren.org.
I am a non-attorney spokesperson representing a team of lawyers who help people that have been injured or wronged. If you've been involved in a serious car, truck, or motorcycle accident or injured at work, you have rights and you may be entitled to money for your suffering. Don't accept an offer you get from an insurance company until you talk to a lawyer. And we represent some of the best personal injury lawyers you can find. Tough lawyers that will fight to win your case. And they're so good they stake their reputation on it by only getting paid if you win. So if you've been in a serious car, truck, or motorcycle accident or hurt on the job, find out today for free what kind of compensation you may be entitled to. Call the legal helpline right now.
800-513-5981. 800-513-5981. 800-513-5981. That's 800-513-5981.
Are you paying too much for your home, life, or auto insurance? It only takes 10 minutes to find out. Hi, this is Kevin Bowles with Badger Insurance Advisors. Choosing insurance plans can be difficult. That's why I make it easy. I'll make the calls, compare the plans and prices, and find you the insurance plan that fits your needs. Best of all, my help is at no cost to you. Call me today at 303-359-1799 or visit badgerinsuranceadvisors.com. Let me find the right insurance for you.
Hi, my name is Dr. Wayne Hoffman. Catch my show, Proactive Health Strategies Hour, Sundays at 8 a.m. We'll be discussing a wide range of health topics, but more importantly, we'll be teaching you how to prevent health problems to begin with. Tune into my show at 1360 KHNC.
So in other local news, it looks like hard hit by coronavirus. Denver clinic helps Native Americans get vaccinated. Now, when I read these things, I try not to immediately assume the worst. I try to question what I'm thinking. But gosh, I gotta say, I hate policy by race. I think we should totally do away with that. In fact, I recently had to talk to the doctor, and one of their first questions was, "Hey, it looks like you removed your race and ethnicity from our little chart here." And I was like, they were like, "Would you like to clarify that for us?" And I was like, I just don't see why it's relevant. Why is it important for me to give you guys that information? Do I have to? Why do we spend so much time talking about race? I suppose in the medical capacity, I don't know, are certain racial groups more inclined physically to develop certain diseases? And is that more an account of your racial group, or is that more an account of your personal choices? So I just think I hate policy by race. I hate that we have to clarify our race and all these different government paperwork, right? Every time I'm filling out a piece of paper and it asks me to tell them what ethnicity and race I am, I typically decline. Denver, the Denver Indian Health and Family Services held their first clinic on Denver on Friday and gave the Moderna shot to 120 Native Americans. The pandemic has taken a cruel toll on American Indians and Alaskan Natives across the U.S. They make up 0.56% of the Colorado population and 0.6% of COVID-19 deaths in the state, according to the state health department website. Well, yeah, it's unfortunate that some people have a disparate impact to the virus, but I will also say that personal choices are hugely responsible for that. Not everyone. The left tries to act like all human beings are just these mindless balls of meat who don't act with any free will, that are just wandering the universe, and that they're all just wood blocks that the left can manipulate through different policies and procedures, that people don't have any agency over themselves. And that's absolutely not the case. It's absolutely not the case. Everybody can make decisions for themselves. I have some neighbors that live next to me in my apartment. I'm friends with them. I go spend time with them and hang out with them. I help them. When I helped them when their car was broken out, and I just enjoy their company. But they party a lot, and I'm not saying this is a reflection on the broader Black community, but they're not taking the risk seriously. They'll be rattling the pictures on my wall at like 3 a.m. I have to text them and be like, "Hey guys, can you like chill out a little bit? I got to get up at 3:30 in the morning." So I suppose thanks for waking me up. You're like an alarm clock, but they'll party all night long. And it just makes me wonder, like, at what point are we going to consider individual actions the cause of disparities versus ethnic group? But I'm not going to make too much of a protest that they have agencies that are catering to different racial groups. I just think it's divisive. I think we should all be treated like Americans. Let's see. What else is going on in the news today? So Trump, they're trying to push the Trump impeachment. And it sounds like this is an effort to keep him from running again, as well as to disqualify him from his lifetime Secret Service protection and presidential pension. And we'll see. I don't know. Gosh, I guess call in and tell me if the new Senate is already sworn in. I guess I heard they were. Could they impeach him now? I don't know. Call in. The call-in number is 970-587-5171. Hey, if you're listening on the Facebook live or on the YouTube live stream, again, feel free to call in 970-587-5171. We can have a conversation about this, or you can ask me anything. I'd love to just have a conversation with you guys. I really appreciate the listeners that we have here, and I would love to hang out with you. So let me know your opinion. But it does appear that one of their primary objectives is to they want Trump to leave in shame, and they want to relinquish him any ability to run again in the future, or to ever be I mean, he really was a pain in their butt for the last 4 years, and I kind of enjoyed that. I didn't like his response to the events at the Capitol. I'm not sure if I would call that. I mean, I suppose I'd call it an insurrection, but it is very lackluster insurrection. I mean, they stumbled around, took photos, and then stumbled out. So it's not like they went in there and occupied the place with firearms. I don't think that this was something that the people who are gay, I've heard some people say that this was a planned event, and I wasn't there. You weren't there. I don't know. I can't speak to that. But I can say the people that I saw on the videos stumbling around with their cell phones, drooling, they didn't look like people who had a plan. They looked like people who were just going along with it, which is pretty sad. Oh, there was something I did want to talk about. So I've been seeing a lot on social media, people talking about how we have this tremendous military budget. Where was the federal police? Where was this security task force? Blah, 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 blah. And people saying that if this had been a Black Lives Matter protest, that it would have been a bloodbath, right? That the cops would have just been shooting everyone down. It would have been just a slaughter, right? And that these protesters were treated with kid gloves, and they're saying, why weren't the feds in there? So Washington, D.C. Mayor, this is according to the Federalist, Muriel Bowser told federal law enforcement to stand down just one day before a mob of Trump supporters breached the U.S. Capitol on Wednesday, smashing windows, entering the chambers, and forcing lawmakers and congressional staff inside into lockdown. This is a quote from Bowser. To be clear, the District of Columbia is not requesting other federal law enforcement personnel and discourages any additional deployment without immediate notification to and consultation with MDP, if such plans are underway, Bowser wrote in a letter to acting U.S. Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen, Secretary of Defense Chris Miller, and Secretary of the Army Ryan D. McCarthy. This is the Bucky Dillon Show. I'll be right back. Hang on.
You can buy gold just about anywhere in the world from all kinds of different dealers. So why do you use the Patriot Trading Group?
20 years of service, just like that. A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, just like that. Lowest prices, just like that. No solicitation, just like that. Buying or selling, just like that.
For all your gold and silver needs, call the Patriot Trading Group at 800-951-0592, just like that. I'm Joe Jaquin, CEO of the Patriot Trading Group, and I would like to encourage everyone to make sure they are prepared financially as the Federal Reserve continues to destroy the value of the dollar. Since the closing of the gold window in 1971, the Federal Reserve has led the way in the explosion of debt and the devaluing of your money. They openly say that they need 2% inflation, which simply means they hope to devalue your money, and they want to do this every single year, year after year. I know it's hard to understand, but the Federal Reserve believes in prosperity through debt and growth via the devaluation of your future. To learn more about how to protect yourself, visit us at allamericangold.com or call us at 800-951-0592 and protect yourself against the devaluing of your money.
Crispy, faded, lit, baked, toasty, stoned, blazed, zooted. When you're high, there are a lot of ways to say it. But there's only one thing you need to remember. Driving under the influence of marijuana is illegal everywhere. If you feel different, you drive different. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
So obviously, this is the narrative they're going to push. They're going to push. The captain of unity, Joe Biden, got up there, said the same thing. We all know that if this was a protest of people of color, they would have been gunned down in the streets. And Kamala Harris got up there immediately after him and said, "We have two institutions of law enforcement in this country. We have two justice systems in this country, one for the white and one for everybody else." Blah, 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 blah. And this is just continuing off those narratives that they've been pushing to imply that America is a racist place and that we systemically in law are prejudiced against people of color. And that's a whole other conversation I hope we can get into. But the Washington, D.C. mayor, Muriel Bowser, is the one who declined more funding for the police and the presence of federal troops. In fact, she explicitly said that it may cause confusion and become a national security threat because of a lack of distinction between them and the police. And they've been saying for they've been saying for months that the whole reason for the protests in Portland is that the federal troops were sent in, and those were only sent in by Trump because that those were actually technically part of Border Control Agency, because Portland is within so many miles of the United States border, so that he was able to send those. But for the majority of the country, Minneapolis, all these other Chicago, all these other cities that were sieged during the BLM riots, there was this big controversy that he was telling them, please request federal assistance. Please request federal assistance. We will get this taken care of right away. Just request federal assistance, because the president cannot actually just willy-nilly send federal troops into cities. That actually has to be done by the mayors and governors. It has to be done by local politicians have to request those troops. And so for these people who saying Trump intentionally withheld federal troops so that they could storm the Capitol building, and that, you know, they're showing pictures of when the left-wing riots were in DC versus the right-wing riots, and that there was federal troops then, that's at the request of the local politicians. And Muriel Bowser is a black left-wing Democrat who literally turned an entire plaza of downtown DC into Black Lives Matter Plaza. So this isn't someone who's, you know, sympathetic to the Trump protesters and avoided bringing in federal troops for that reason. She didn't want them. And up until this point, Trump supporters really haven't caused a problem. You know, so they say that there's this disparate reaction to the BLM protesters and these Trump protesters in DC last week. And there is. But the biggest difference in my eyes is that the left-wing protests literally burnt down entire city blocks or set up autonomous zones, right? They went on for months and months. It caused more than $2 billion in damage. Crime rates in these cities went up like 300%. Homicide rates went up like 150%. These protests were ongoing. They were just looting and smashing every business in the business districts of these cities and taking all they could. No small business was injured at this Trump protest. And I'm not saying that to be sympathetic to the Trump's protest. I'm saying that because I would genuinely rather see people who are upset at the political establishment take it out on the political establishment than go downtown and burn down their neighbors' businesses and rob them. And again, I am not justifying what happened at the Capitol. What happened at the Capitol was an absolute tragedy for the Patriot movement, for people who felt like they were being, I mean, it sent the worst message. Politics is all about messaging. What does the left do really well? The left does messaging and activism. That's why they dominate the media. That's why they dominate education. That's why they dominate the culture. That's why they dominate Hollywood. That's why they dominate music. That's why they're dominant the social justice narratives and all of the popular TV shows and movies. It's because the left is really great at messaging and activism. And they're right about that. If the right could figure that out, they'd be unstoppable. Because I think that the right largely has better policies. And this is in no way a defense of right-wing politicians, because I think they're just as slimy as the left-wing politicians. I'm talking specifically about the conservatarian governing philosophies and the policy positions. But yeah, there was a disparate treatment of the protesters. Police officers were kneeling with the BLM protesters. White people all across the country were getting on their knees and literally kissing their shoes all across the country. And it's really frustrating to see all these people on one side acting as this is now the justification to start censoring. And this is what they accomplished. This is what the so-called patriot protest accomplished. Now the left can use this as a club to justify censoring any community organizing group on social media that has an ideology to the right of Hillary Clinton. Any community organizing group online that can be seen as pro-Trump or to the right of a moderate Democrat is now going to be smeared with, this could be an incitement to violence. Just look what happened at the Capitol. But they're never going to do that. They're never going to do that with the left. Antifa groups like Occupied Seattle and all these other, Antifa Colorado Springs, all these other left-wing violent revolutionary groups are not going to be censored on social media because they control it, because the left does activism. That's why I joined this radio station in the first place. That's why I got involved in politics, because I noticed that the right was great at a lot of things. The right was good. They understood the founding. They were good at policy and economics. They understood that we needed operational control of our borders. They understood that we needed a strong military in order to be safe from foreign malevolence. But they had no ground game. And hopefully we can turn that around. It's going to be a lot more difficult now if we're being censored on social media today. This might have a bad reputation.
Please work with Colorado Right to Life to abolish abortion and not with those who regulate it. For the so-called pro-life regulations convince even our own judges that the unborn child has no true right to life. So we've offered $10,000 to National Right to Life to name a single justice who has ever acknowledged the unborn child's right to life. Tragically, there are none. See that at americanrtl.org/regulations.
Join us and don't miss a moment of The Alex Jones Show, your #1 source for real independent media. Find out what the mainstream media doesn't want you to know. InfoWars is pro-America, pro-family, pro-freedom. We are rebooting 1776. Exclusive reports, live coverage, information you won't find anywhere else. Tomorrow's news today. Stay informed by listening to KHNC 1360 AM.
Alex is here, 1 o'clock, Monday through Friday, right here on the Roar of the Rockies.
Reasons to own gold. Reason number 1.
Culturally, the golden rule is treating others as you want to be treated. But financially, the golden rule is those that have the gold make the rules. When you retire, make sure you can write your rules. Call the Patriot Trading Group at 800-951-0592 or visit our website at allamericangold.com.
Hi, this is Martina McBride. With online news, social media, and texting available 24/7, the world seems to be spinning faster and faster every day. And it can be overwhelming. Sometimes we just need to unplug and take a break from our electronic devices. It can help reduce stress and allow us to reflect on the things that are really important in our lives.
This message brought to you courtesy of the United States Air Force.
If you love wealth better than liberty, the tranquility of servitude better than the animated contest of freedom, go home from us in peace. We ask not your counsel nor your arms. Crouch down and lick the hands which feed you. May your chains be set lightly upon you, and may posterity forget that you were ever our countrymen. Samuel Adams.
Most people think they can't afford to invest in gold and silver. But at the Patriot Trading Group, we believe that everyone should have the opportunity to own hard assets. That's why we created our Preferred Metals program. You can get started for as little as $100 a month. Go to allamericangold.com and click on our Preferred Metals icon to learn how you can get started today. Or call us at 800-951-0592. The Patriot Trading Group, allamericangold.com.
So it looks like about 25 people are being charged with domestic terrorism following the storming of the Capitol building. Fair enough. Fair enough. I have been outspoken in saying that, it was only a couple months ago that Trump was declaring that anyone who destroyed a federal monument should be hit with a federal crime and do 10 months in prison. And I don't see why this is any different. Censoring of conservative voices online. I'm going to just read off a short list of some of the left-wing media pundits and politicians who are celebrating left-wing violence and justifying left-wing violence. There will be blood in the streets, said Loretta Lynch. Who says protests have to be peaceful, said Chris Cuomo. There needs to be unrest in the streets, Ayanna Pressley. Protesters should not let up, says Kamala Harris. I just don't know why there aren't uprisings all over this country. Maybe there should be, Nancy Pelosi said. You get out there and you create a crowd and you push back on them and you tell them that they're not welcome anymore, anywhere, Maxine Waters. Go home with love and in peace. Remember this day forever, said President Trump. And we all saw it. All of us saw it. I am shocked and appalled at how few and far between it seems that I can find friends of mine who are willing to call out their own side, which is an act of patriotism. Because the highest act of patriotism is telling the truth and holding all of your countrymen to the same standard. And understanding the whole point in free speech, the whole point in democracy is to have conversations with people who disagree with you. Hey, Lucy on the YouTube chat, good morning to you. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I'm honored to have your attention this morning, and I hope you will continue to hang out with me. Feel free to ask me anything. I'll address any of your questions, whether it has to do with today's news or not. Looks like we only have a minute left, so if you're going to ask me anything, ask it now or tune in tomorrow morning. Same time, 6:05 to about 6:58. But if you ask a question on the YouTube chat today, I will make a point to address it tomorrow morning. So I hope you hang around. Anyways, guys, like I was saying, the whole point in freedom of speech, the whole point in democracy is to have conversations with people who don't think like you. So that hopefully when you go to vote, you can vote with your best intentions, and somebody who disagrees with you can vote in a way for accounts for the areas where you're ignorant or wrong. The biggest problem we have in our country right now is our electoral system that puts our politicians in a place where they have to run on demagoguery and grievance peddling in order to win. What is slated for today in D.C.? Lucy asks, I'm not totally sure. I will look into that and I will respond in the YouTube chat when I have some time. Into the YouTube chat when I have some time after the show. This is the final segment. You're listening to the Bucky Dillon Show, a collaborative between myself and the free-thinking, patriotic community in northern Colorado, listening to the radio broadcast or tuning in on the live stream or on the website all around the world. Guys, be nice to each other. I love you.
Does this corrupt monetary system give you a whack to the head or a poke in the eye? Call Patriot Trading Group at 800-9